Does look like the numbers have stopped climbing.
Is it? Okay. Thank you so much, Amanda. All right. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Tiffany Nunnally, and it is indeed my pleasure. I'm so excited to be back with Reingold today on this very special occasion. It is the last day of Women's Health Month, and we have the privilege to listen and learn from our distinguished leaders that will be serving as panelists for this discussion today. We have Sandy Wacker, Courtney Fox, Stephanie Ruby, and Amanda Scheckman today. The purpose of today's talk is to explore ways to maintain resilience, specifically through self-care, and to cultivate future leadership and talk about ways we can do that and support those efforts. Our goal is simple. We care about you, and we want to learn together how we can continue to stay healthy and thrive in the workplace. So with that being said, I am going to allow each panelist to introduce themselves, starting with Courtney Fox.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Courtney Fox, and I am the Instructional Design Project Manager. What that means is that I help our ID team move our projects forward for our client. I keep our internal project team updated on our progress, and we inform our clients of our progress as well. I am in Columbia, South Carolina, the home of the Lady Gamecocks. We have made it to the Final Four, and we play tomorrow. So let's cheer us on. And I started at Reingold in November, so it'll be 5 months next month. And I've learned a lot since I've been here, and I'm still learning.
Excellent. All right, Stephanie, you're up next.
Hi, everyone. Courtney, Amanda and I are Florida Gators, so just got to throw that one out there. Hi, I'm Stephanie Ruby. I am a senior director on the content team. I have been at Reingold for 6 months on Monday. Also still really learning and excited to continue to do the important work we do here. Before I was at Reingold, I worked on global social for YouTube. I worked for Tom Steyer at Need to Impeach and was Tom for 6 months on Twitter, including while he was on the debate stage, which was a lot of fun. I've done social media for all kinds of clients. I taught the man who invented the Super Soaker how to use Twitter, Dr. Lonnie Johnson. He's a really cool dude. And so I've been doing social media for over a decade. I love it. It's my passion. And so I think that's it, right? There's my little intro. I'll throw it back to Tiffany.
Yeah, all right. So can we have Sandy?
Thanks, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. My name is Sandy Wacker, and I'm a director at Reingold in the consulting department. I am also the 2021 Spelling Bee champion. If Joe LaMountain is on the line, please let him know that I have not yet received my award, and I would like that very much. I work on the Hope App project as a project manager, and I've been at Reingold. It'll be 10 years in October, so it's been my whole career pretty much, and it seems like we're doing school sports references. So I am a Haverford College Black Squirrel, so go liberal arts. And that's about it. Back to you, Tiffany.
And last but certainly not least, Amanda.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Amanda Scheckman. I'm a senior director in the consulting department, predominantly overseeing a number of our Office of Connected Care contracts, our telehealth contracts. I have been with Reingold for a little over 7 years. Time is truly flying. And I guess my Reingold fun fact is I take Halloween really seriously. So I'm really hoping we are back in the office again this year because I have a slew of costume ideas. So I'm working on it.
Hilarious. All right, sounds good. All right, well, let's start this discussion of how you all got started. I know each of you took different paths. A couple of you talked about your hometown, where you're from, what's happening in your life, but you took the different paths to get to where you are today. So can you tell us, how did the earlier parts of your life really help build the foundation to move you into leadership and where you are today at Reingold? Anyone can start with that one.
Oh, sorry, Amanda, you started right when I did.
Go ahead, Stephanie, all you.
So I was really, really lucky. When I was in college, I interned on the Hill for John Kerry, and then I interned for Mark Warner. And when I worked for Mark Warner, there was this amazing woman named Riley who, she's no longer with us. She was a smart-mouthed, very caring, whip-smart person who did not take BS from anybody. And she always had my back. She was deeply invested in my growth. She was one of the best mentors and first bosses to ever have. And so I had this amazing female mentor right out of the gate. And it was that situation where you're like, oh, every boss is going to be like this. And LOL, that is not true. And so that is why it's really good to hold on to those mentors, because they're the ones who are going to set that example for you. And I say that because just like truthfully, the worst bosses I've ever had have all been women. And the best bosses I've had have been women. And so my big thing for my journey from working in politics all the way through to my mentor, Tammy Gordon, in the social media space, is that I try very hard in terms of leadership to remember how people made me feel and what were the things they did that made me feel certain ways. So like, what were the things that Mame did that made me feel like I was smart and capable? What were the things that made me feel heard and seen? And then what were those other bosses like that made me feel disempowered, that made me feel like I didn't have a voice, that made me feel like I had nothing to contribute or isolated me? And so when I'm managing a team, when I'm going into collaborations, I try really hard to use the examples that I've learned from and try to make sure that I am acting in a way that makes people feel heard, seen, and part of a team. So that's kind of like my big takeaway from being a leader in an organization.
Awesome. Amanda, can you share a little bit about the earlier parts of your life and how it built the foundation to where you are today?
I mean, I feel so many parallels in what Stephanie's talking about, having had both male and female supervisors over my lifetime and bosses of my work. And I was very lucky in my 2 jobs prior to this that I had really empowering female supervisors over my work. And I think one of the things that really impacted me was their interest in me as like a whole person, and my ability to really bring my authentic self to the table and talk about things that happened outside of work. And in that way, I think I've learned a lot about how I engage with a lot of my supervisees and my teammates now too, about the fact that, like, you know, one of my things I always say is sort of like, work without the people is just work, and that kind of sucks, you know. And one of the things that I think has always been amazing about Reingold is the people and the relationships and the fun and our ability to have other conversations. And I learned a lot of that from people that I used to work from, and the difference between feeling like I was a robot or a cog in the machine, and the difference between me, you know, wanting career growth and wanting to talk about myself as a person and where I want to go. And that's one of the things that I learned a lot about, that I really try to, you know, hone in with the people that I work with.
Thank you, Amanda. Courtney or Sandy?
Sure. I was gonna throw it back a little earlier. One thing kind of in my earlier life that I really attribute kind of shaping me, how I am both as a person and as a leader, just, you know, communications person, is I was born in Japan, and then I moved to England, and then I moved to America, then I moved to England, then I moved to America. So in the first kind of 10 years of my life, I lived in multiple countries, been around multiple cultures, multiple people. So it really kind of opened a broader worldview of how I see people, how I see communities, and then also kind of getting into a communication side. how I communicate with others, or how I kind of tailor these messages or work with different audiences or personas to try to understand and best reach them. So I really think having this kind of international back and forth background really shaped that mindset, but then also kind of gave Daniel, put yourself on mute.
He's a media guy. He should know that.
Yeah, so I kind of attribute that background to really how I view myself as a communicator, but then also just as a person, and as a leader as well. Part of the leadership thing is, as well as that I joke that I was raised by a lawyer, and that has also really shaped kind of my line of inquiry, how I, interact with people and have conversations and make arguments and make rationales. So I think just a lot of these kind of earlier experiences have really shaped how I am as a communicator, and then ultimately as a leader as well.
All right, Courtney.
Yeah, so I want to take it back even a little further back to when I was in school, and how I was that talkative little girl, and I'm not as talkative as I used to be, but in that space, I saw myself as a defender. So I would speak up for individuals. I would be the spokesperson for individuals. I would be the advocate. And as I advanced in my early career, I saw how my female bosses were really the same, but pulling me aside and developing those intimate relationships, which have now been critical to my career advancement. With networking and building those individualized relationships. And in fact, every position that I have obtained since I started work was through networking, because of those individual relationships. And that's been really critical.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing is our natural personalities, right? How we grew up, how we interacted with people, places that we've lived, other female leaders, our parents, all of these things have kind of molded you into the leader that you are today, and helped to shape your life and how you live your life and how you engage with others. But tell me, do you think supporting and cultivating future leadership is different? Would you do that differently for a woman than you would a man?
I don't know if you're going to jump in, but I was just going to say, it's interesting because to Stephanie's point of, good bosses, bad bosses, women, I have largely worked primarily with women, in my time at Reingold and my career in general. I've had only women supervisors. I currently only supervise women, have never supervised a man, have had project teams of, both men and women. And it's an interesting question that I've never really thought of, because I think, primarily I've only, worked with women. So I would like to think that I would, give the same opportunities, allow, for the same mistakes to be made, the same growing opportunities. But then I also think when I am working with women, being a leader, fostering their growth, is that I'm hypersensitive to, some of the unconscious biases or some of the stereotypes or other kind of experiences of being pigeonholed that I myself have experienced, over the years, in school and in work. So I'm very kind of hypersensitive to those. And I don't know if I would be the same to men. And I don't know if that would be, to a detriment to them or to me, kind of in both of our roles.
Absolutely. Amanda?
Yeah, I would say that there's some tendencies that come up with some of the women that I manage that don't come up with the men that I manage. And so it's oftentimes a response to that, less that I am managing differently, but more that different things come up. I would say for any of the women who are on my teams who are on this call have probably heard me at one point or another to say, stop saying I'm sorry and stop apologizing. That is one of those things that I learned not too long ago, but that I was like, because all of a sudden I was like, you know what, I'm not going to apologize for taking up space, and I'm not going to apologize for asking clarifying questions, because that's what we're supposed to be doing. And it's something that I tend to see more from my female colleagues. And so oftentimes I will stop and I will say, stop saying you're sorry. You're doing your job. Like, there's nothing for you to apologize about. And that's so it's more of a reaction to how I see that happen. So then I think it's an intentional decision to manage my male or female colleagues differently.
Yeah, so I just want to that's exactly right. I have managed all kinds of people all across age demographics, all across I've had Black supervisees, I've had queer supervisees, and I think identity within the world is also reflective of identity within the workspace. And so I think the way I manage just in general is, I'm sure we've all heard of the love languages. Now, obviously there is one that does not apply in a work setting, but there are people have a way where they prefer to be loved on. And I mean that in a managerial sense, right? Like, I try very hard not to look at each of the people I manage as within some kind of general block. I just look at them as individuals, and I try to figure out what puzzle they're trying to solve and how I can support that. Because it's one thing to say, well, yes, all women are X. Well, no, we're not, right? Like, they're even within people who are cisgendered heterosexual women, we come in all different kinds of shapes and sizes. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different needs, personalities. And so I think that just goes across all the boards, because I'll say, like, I've managed a white man who's more neurotic than anybody I've ever dealt with. And my job is to give him the same like pep talks of like, you're doing great. Your voice is important. Stand up for yourself. And those are just as important things, depending on personality and identity, than just gender. But for sure, I think because I am a woman, I'm really cognizant of the fact that there are perceptions about me because of my gender. And that also happens to people who have different intersectional identities, who are dealing with both being perceived from a gender standpoint and a race standpoint. And that complicates things even more, which that's not to say that like that I get it right all of the time. In fact, I'm always trying to do better. And I think that's why it's my job to listen to the people who I supervise and try to figure out how perceptions of them within certain environments require us to talk about issues in a different way. Because the advice I would give to one person is not the same advice I'd give to another, even if they're both having a similar problem, if that makes sense. So exactly what Amanda said, for sure.
Anyone else? Well, I'm interested in hearing a male's perspective of this same question. Are there any male leaders who would like to answer this question and tell us how you support and cultivate future leadership? And is that different? Would that approach be different from a male versus female? Somebody said Scott has his camera on. Scott, you may have been volunteering.
Oh yeah. No, I'm happy to talk. I always have my camera on. I'm one of the OG. I'm one of the OG remote people, and so that people remember my face, I always have my camera on. You know what? I was sort of ashamed with what I thought, because I thought, okay, Scott, are you consciously supervising people? Because I directly supervise people, and I directly influence a lot of people. And my first thought was no, until I got into DE&I and one of the leadership and even unconscious bias, and I wasn't, and I don't think I am right now. And what I'm taking away from that is there's probably more to pay attention to as far as like, what are my unconscious biases or what is going on than what I am paying attention to. So for me, the question was like, oh crap, I don't think I am doing enough. I don't think I'm paying attention enough. I'm inherently an empathetic person, and my management style is to keep people supported. So I hope that some of that negates that, but yeah, there's not enough conscious thought. So that was my thought. I was like, oh crap, I'm not thinking enough about what are the differences. And it doesn't mean that people aren't individuals. It just means that there are things to pay attention to that I'm probably not paying attention to. So that was my answer was, oh crap, I probably need to pay attention more to this.
Thank you for that transparency, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? Great discussion.
I'm just going to say, Scott coming on camera or speaking made me think of something that I learned from Scott was thinking about how we give opportunity, or how we kind of allow someone the chance to do something. So often I feel that as leaders or managers, we can get stuck in the the same rut of, oh, I go to, these two people for these things. I go to this person for this thing. And you don't think outside the box of who you've always gone to, and whether that's, a woman, a man, it doesn't matter. But I think sometimes we can just get stuck in a rut of who we go to. So I think that's just kind of an encouragement, and something that I know I've been working on after talking to Scott about it is opening up that opportunity and seeing who else could be, given a chance to really run with something. So I think that's just an important lesson that I know I've learned and have been working on, and then also encourage other people on this call as well to really try out and kind of branch outside your comfort zone when it comes to your go-to people.
Thank you, Sandy. All right. Well, another question for you. Can you share a story of when you feel like your own leadership was being supported and cultivated? And I heard, I think it was Stephanie and Amanda talk specifically about having work experiences with other leaders that helped shape who they are today. But can you tell us about something very specific, a story of what happened and what they did and how that made you feel supported? And it doesn't have to be Stephanie or Amanda, it can be anyone, but I'm looking for a specific story that we can learn from that will help us to see how we can support and cultivate future leaders.
I think it's a hard question to answer, because the people who did it right in so many little ways. For me, it wasn't one big thing. The supervisors that I've had that, in my prior jobs that I feel like really shaped me so much, it was just their general presence and their supportive nature, and that, like, as a whole, like, I don't think there was like a turning point for me necessarily where I was like, oh, I feel so supported. Okay. It was just sort of like their whole way that they, really cared about me and my career, my growth and my education and all those opportunities, more so than I feel like it was sort of a moment in time for me personally.
So for me, it's like a say that, do that, I have your back, right? Like I feel like women so often are told, like Amanda said in the chat, right? Like, you talk too much, you're bossy, you need to take it down about 4 notches. But I always felt like when someone was like, oh, that's really smart, you should say that. And I try really hard to do that with my team here at Reingold. And what I try to do at former teams is like, you're smart, you know what you're talking about, go say that. And if someone has something to say about it, you tell them to come to me, because I have your back 100%. And that doesn't mean that you should run your mouth all the time, but it does mean that, like, there are moments where it's important that you use your voice to speak up. And I just want to plug my friend Meredith Feynman. She has a book called Brag Better. And it's a book all about how the work you do is really important. And it's not bragging. What it is it's stating facts about the work you do. So it's not like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm amazing. It's no, like, we improved positive brand sentiment online during this campaign by like 5%. That's not bragging. It's stating the facts that your work was amazing and it did the thing that you were asked to do. So it's totally this supporting people and encouraging them to use their voice at work, to speak up for themselves, and making sure that you are the net that will catch them when they're terrified or when they feel like someone is coming at them in a weird direction. And that's a huge thing, is being in people's corners.
Oh, I love that, Stephanie. What I hear you saying is cultivating boldness is important, right? Is encouraging them to step out and to be bold and to use their voice. Absolutely. And knowing that your boss has your back is huge, 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 to know you have that support. And like Amanda said, just all of those times being there, right? Because you're developing trust in that relationship as you continue to show up in that space for your employee. Absolutely.
I was going to add kind of the maybe a bigger moment was when I first had leaders or mentors or supervisors really kind of advocate for me and go up to bat for me and kind of put that extra oomph behind it. The bragging about myself is definitely something that I've been working on a lot. And like, how do you really advocate yourself? Because you are going to be the only person who can fight for you to the utmost. But having someone else kind of step up with you and supporting you can be super, super valuable. So I think to me, that was kind of the more specific example I can think of someone really kind of stepping up to support and cultivate my own leadership. And I saw that Leah had her hand up. So I don't know if Leah, you want to, for calling on people.
Also, I think Courtney has an answer
Oh,
first.
yes.
Yeah. I also wanted to add, I had a supervisor who was really good at coaching. And so not just giving me the plays and wanting me to take out the actions, but also asking questions of what made me decide to do this thing. And it wasn't that they were questioning what I was doing, but they were wanting to understand the thought process, because when they understood my thought process, they could give me constructive feedback, which included that positive feedback, but also maybe areas where I could improve. So helping me to understand how to process different things and how to make decisions. I thought that was very helpful through the coaching process.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, we had a hand up. You can take yourself off mute. Go ahead.
Leah, was that your hand or did I hallucinate and make it out? If not,
yes, later.
yeah.
All right. On that same kind of notion, what can you share an example of when you didn't have such a great leader, and what lessons can we learn from those moments?
I think sometimes when I've had less than productive or supportive interactions with managers or leaders, as if they hyper focus on something that frankly isn't relevant. And I think this, I don't know if this is a, people, I don't want to say pick on, aspects of what a woman does more than they would a man, but I've found that I've had experiences where the focus has been too dialed into one thing. So sometimes what I mentioned earlier, like women get pigeonholed into tasks at work. Sometimes those can, skew maybe secretarial or kind of housekeeping. So when I used to work on some event planning and we'd book hotel rooms, when we're traveling, I remember one manager was like, well, you didn't book it under the government rate. And I didn't have a government ID. I wasn't working for the government. I could not legally get a government rate. Yeah, this became the focus, and it was a repeated focus. And it was like, well, that one time you didn't book a government rate. So this is my kind of lesson of people as managers, try not to focus on these little things that may not have any bearing, may not even be relevant, and just move on. If it's a learning experience, make it a learning experience, and we learn from it and we move on. But I think there can be a tendency to dial in a little bit too much to something that doesn't matter. So that's my kind of specific negative experience of working with a manager who just couldn't let go.
So
we focus on the little things. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I was gonna say, for me, it's like the worst female bosses I've had, that I mentioned before, were people who they wanted to be the biggest fish in the pond. So instead of, like, we talked a little bit before, I think at one of our other women's history, shine theory. And what shine theory is when you do well, you make me shine as well. We all shine together. And so it's not even so much, to me, it was, I'm the big dog. You're helping me continue to be the big dog. I'm going to take the credit for your work. I don't want you to let anybody know. You stay in the background so that I can be the big dog in the room. And that's happened to me in political spaces in particular. And I think that's just because there is so much scratching and clawing to have a seat at the table. And so it's not that I don't have empathy for that kind of manager or that kind of woman. It's more just, though, that always made me feel like shit. Like, across the board, it never made me feel good. And for me, at least this is my hope, when I'm managing people on my team, I want them to present in internal meetings and clients. I want people to see that they are smart, because in my opinion, is when my team looks good, I look good, because they're my team and I'm building them up. So, and I say my team because they're my team. But yeah, it's kind of this idea of like, I don't have to be I don't have to be the man or the woman. I am part of a team collectively, and I'm hoping we can all shine together.
Love it, love it, love it. Teamwork, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about advice that you would give a future leader, because I know we have many people here who are capable and may be interested in leadership, right? And so can any of you share what advice you would give to someone who may be interested in growing in leadership here at Reingold?
I think some of the key things that I've learned over the years is you are allowed to take up space, like your voice matters. If you are in a meeting, you are there for a reason. Never hold back if you feel like you have something to share. In that same vein, I say own your space, know your boundaries, know your limits. Don't let people take more of your time, energy, brain space than they deserve. And I mean that in a nice way and in a self-protective way as well. I think we're going to probably talk a little bit about kind of self-care and balance moving forward, but that's really how I kind of maintain my own sanity and how I, maintain myself as a leader is protecting kind of who I am and in my own place. And there was something else I was going to say, but I forgot. But if it comes back, I will say something. But turn it over to the others if they want to add.
No one wants you to fail, especially here at Reingold. There is not one person in an internal meeting who is like, ugh, I really, really don't like that person. I mean, maybe there is, but forget those people. Most of the people in the room want you to do well. Your clients want you to do well. They want you to do amazing things, and they want you to contribute your expertise. So if you assume best intentions and you assume that every single person thinks you are amazing and smart and funny and can contribute, then you can contribute with confidence. And I promise you, at least almost every person I've met here at Reingold, no one wants you to do a bad job. No one wants you to feel lost or not part of it. And then like the other piece here, and this goes into that self-care piece, which I know we're going to get into, but like your online behavior from a social media standpoint, the algorithm is only a reflection of you. So you follow people and the algorithm spits it back at you. The example here I will use is fat liberation and body positivity. If I have spent so much time unfollowing people that made me feel bad about my body. Now I follow these beautiful women who are of all shapes and sizes. And you know what? I no longer feel, for the most part, bad about my body. And like a great example of that is Lizzo and the kind of content that she creates, which is inclusive to all people. And so something I would encourage people to do is start thinking through what your diet of social media is and find those people who are reflective of who you want to be, because eventually you're going to go, wow, Lizzo looks amazing in that dress. Oh, like I'm also beautiful and worthy and amazing too. So I think through like how you can do that both in your social media life, but also in your diet of the people you hang around and the people you hang around at work, because nobody wants you to fail. And you want to find those people who recognize the light in you and reflect it back at you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm hearing self-care, knowing your limits, but still taking up space at work, but also self-care from a life perspective in our daily habits, such as social media, and paying attention to how things are making me feel, right? I like to say your input equals your output, right? So what am I taking in? How is that showing up for me in my emotions and my thoughts and those type of things? So I love this shift into self-care, and particularly going back to a workplace conversation is maintaining resilience in order to do well. So let's talk about how do you practice self-care in general in the workplace. So Stephanie, I know that we've heard from you and Sandy, so maybe this question for Courtney and Amanda.
Sure. So self-care in general for me is really about doing those activities that would cause me not to need to take a break or escape life, really. A lot of times we think about self-care as maybe going to get a massage, going on vacation, but how do I maintain on a daily basis so that I don't have to escape this. At work, what that looks like is asking for the time that I need to focus on the work that I need to complete. That also looks like putting focus time on my schedule or blocking out time between meetings so that they don't get scheduled back to back. It involves really knowing like what it is that you need as an individual in order to remain in a healthy space, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, and knowing when to take a walk, like stepping away from everything to get refreshed. Because what I've seen here since I've been here in November is that we have lots of women in leadership. You ladies are high performers. I've sat in on meetings and observed your interactions with clients and moving things forward with your teams and having wonderful outcomes. And just wanting to know, and I'm going to put this question out here too, Tiffany, if you don't mind, those who've been at Reingold and have been doing this for some time, because I've sat in on back-to-back meetings and I'm like, how do you do this? How do you maintain your resilience working in a work culture where everything is fast, where and you're still performing at a high level? How do you manage that?
I've thrown things.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's been interesting the way the pandemic has changed that in so many ways. You know, I mean, I don't remember nearly as we're taking up your lunch hour here, but I don't remember as nearly as many like lunchtime meetings as there used to be, because I think there was inherently some hallway conversations that happened, that we cleared up something, we got the information we need. It was like 2 minutes while we were, you know, using the freestyle Coke machine, and like then you were back to your desk and you didn't have to have a meeting about it. So, but like Courtney, I do very similar things. When I know I have large deliverables coming up that I really need to be heads down and focusing, I block the time on my calendar, because otherwise I know it's going to start getting filled with people who do want to talk to me or need to talk to me. But, you know, we have to find ways that we can get our work done within sort of the parameters that we're comfortable with. For me too, self-care within the office is also just connecting with my colleagues. You know, I feel for a lot of my colleagues who have started while we've been fully remote, while we've been in this pandemic, who kind of only know like their little team, because there's so many incredible people at Reingold that I only met because we used to sit on the same floor. We used to have the same, you know, early lunchtime and be in the kitchen at the same time, that I only knew them because of that. And one of the things that like really sort of like fills my bucket is when I get to connect with them. And I was, you know, on a call with Michael Sharp yesterday, or I'm sending a joke to Ethan or something like that. We're like just connecting with those colleagues who mean so much to me. As Ethan just slacked me that he misses our office banter, as I call him out too, because I loved that. I loved finding the colleagues that had the same TV shows that I love to watch and talking to them about that. And so I think, you know, the ways that we do coffee chats and all of that, I would encourage people to especially keep doing that, because, you know, that to me, again, work without the people is just work. Like I feed off the energy of those around me, and it makes me feel, you know, really warms my heart when I get to connect with my colleagues, not talking about a work topic.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Absolutely. Bonding. That's what I'm hearing, right? Makes the workday a better day. Absolutely. All right. So how do you model self-care to others? So every day you're doing this, how are you modeling self-care to your team?
I do not write or send emails over the weekend. I don't send them off hours. I am available via text if there is an emergency off hours, but do not Slack me because I will not answer you. And I know that sounds really harsh and maybe like I'm not, oh, someone needs to mute themselves. But my last job was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It required crisis comms, responses. It didn't matter what time of day it was. If news was breaking over, in Europe that needed to be dealt with for the brand in America, I had to be there giving strategic advice. And it didn't matter what I was doing, I had to stop and do it. So I feel like work-life balance for me, it's non-negotiable. And so for me also, it is my job to mirror that back to my team. So you're not going to hear from me after 6 o'clock unless the world is on fire. And you're not going to hear from me on the weekends unless the world is on fire. And the thing I like about our clients is we don't have to do that here at Reingold for the most part. Now, I know there are exceptions to that rule. But so I've tried very hard not to get in touch with people on the weekends. Like an example I'll use is I love Emmy Prager from the tips of her hair to her toes, but I do not talk to her on the weekends because we are work colleagues. And unless I need to tell her something really important, I'm not communicating so that she doesn't feel like she has to respond back to me. And I know that's different if you're friends, but there is a difference between work communication and friend communication.
I'll also add that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, thank you, Stephanie. Go ahead, Cindy.
I would add that the way I try to model some of this balanced behavior is that I am the biggest advocate of taking paid time off. Take your vacation, take your sick time. Do not say, oh, I can still be reached by, Slack or text me. Like, no, don't give your number out. We earn these benefits. We earn our vacation time. We earn our sick time. Go on vacation. Do not check your email. Do not respond to Slacks. Text Emmy Prager about Bridgerton over the weekend. That is allowed. But definitely use your time and ignore people. I've seen too many employees, and oftentimes women saying, I'm going to the doctor's, but I will, I'll be on Slack or whatever, kind of in between things. I'm like, no, don't do it. Take your time. So that is what I try to model. I'm not the best at it because sometimes you're stuck in a waiting room for 30 minutes. But definitely use your time and know that it's your time, and don't feel like you owe that to people who are bothering you during it.
Thank you, Sandy. How do you recognize the need for self-care in other women? Maybe you can share an experience where you've identified that there was a need there.
I'm going to say something that's going to sound a little harsh, because I think it's important to care about your job. It is so important to care about your job. I like that you care about your job, but your job is not who you are, and it is not that important. And if it is that important, there is someone else who's on the bench who you can tap to bring in. And so for me, I am constantly trying to walk the line between being like, I understand that you care a lot, but it will go a lot better for you long-term if you can care like slightly less, because this is a marathon and not a sprint. And if you keep running faster and faster and faster and faster, you are going to burn out. It is just how it's going to work, because no person can sustain that. So like, yeah, right. It's important to care. I'm so happy you care. Please care, but don't care so much that you are making choices that are detrimental to who you are. Because like I said, no one wants you to fail. There is always someone who can help you out. And we are a large team here at Reingold. So there is for sure another person you can tap.
Hey, that is my timer that we're 15 minutes in. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Love that, Stephanie. Love, love, love. Let's shift it just a bit, staying on this conversation of maintaining resilience. Your life, your job is not your life. So let's talk about when life gets complicated, because we're juggling so many different things, especially parenthood. Tell me the impact of being a parent and how that has impacted you with balancing work and self-care. Amanda, are you a mom?
I am, yeah, I have 2 daughters, yeah.
Okay, can you share?
So I started at Reingold when I had a 6-month-old. My oldest was 6 months old. And I had left a previous job that was like a toxic work environment. I was like, not going back there. And so I came to Reingold as like a new mom in a new job. And a former colleague, no longer with the organization, and not to call him out, but wrote this blog for our internal blog that was all about how the only way you're going to get ahead is if you do more than your 40 hours a week of required work. And I have very vivid memories of sitting in this was old Reingold. We have a much better mother's room now, but the mother's room there was the shower room. Wasn't an excellent situation, but I distinctly remember sitting there pumping, trying to type out this message of like rebuttal to the fact that like that puts people like me at a really unfair advantage, right? I'm a new mother, I'm figuring stuff out. I got to get my kid from daycare. And it was like this really like, I had so many feelings and I was like, you know what? I haven't been here long enough. I'm still figuring out my journey and I didn't stand up to it. And it's one of those ones that I replay in my head. I wake up at like 3 a.m. and I can't sleep. And I like still think about how I would respond to that. And so, you know, I will say as a parent for self-care and what I do is I am taking off a day at the end of April to take my kid on a field trip, right? I'm not missing it. I have vacation time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to work with my team to cover it because like, I am not willing to miss my kids' experiences and the things that bring me joy for work, right? The work will get done. Everyone on my team knows what they need to do. I've empowered team members. So like, I feel like I have the coverage that I need. I'm not leaving anyone in the lurch, but that I am making sure that I have the time that I need, that I'm not missing out on these experiences that mean so much to me. You know, I read this New York Times article recently about depressing math, which is essentially like how little time we have with people in the whole of our lives, that you might have like a total of 30 days with your parents for the rest of your life, like over the times that you're seeing them. And, you know, through this pandemic and through everything, I have decided that I'm going to really try to use my time more intentionally, and I'm not going to miss these things that mean a lot to me.
So I have, my son will be 11 in August. So I'm out of those itty bitty baby phases. And let me just tell you, as hard as you think those years are, they are harder than you can even imagine. I will also say though, that I became a better worker when I had a family. It helped me really figure out and focus, right? Like I have these 8 hours today. What am I doing and how can I maximize my impact in a way that is productive and good, while also figuring out what the knucklehead things are that I don't have time to worry about. So it really helped me, at least in my experience, and I've seen this happen in other women, is be almost a, so I don't want to make it be like an us versus them thing, but it made me a better employee and it made me a better person who could contribute to my workplace. I will also say that in so many ways, your child imitates you. So the example that you set for them in how you handle work stress, in how you handle your mental health, and how you talk about food and dieting in your body, all of those things are things that your child is hearing and watching you do, and they are internalizing it like a sponge. And those, to me, those are the big things. If my son sees me work out on a regular basis and work out because it benefits my mental health, he now has a good example. If he watches me have weekends and take trips and be at his field trip, those are things that he sees and feels that he will replicate, hopefully, you never know, throughout the rest of his life.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. All right. So as we're nearing the last 10 minutes of the talk, I want to talk about self-awareness as it's a component of self-care. And I just want you to, each person to answer this, or I should say, respond to the prompt that I will say, and then we'll see if we have any questions from the group. So here goes. And we'll start with Courtney, and then we'll go Stephanie, Sandy, and then Amanda. What I need from you is.
I'm new to Reingold. I still think that I'm new, being in less than 5 months. What I need from you is your continued support and compassion as I continue to learn the work processes, as I continue to learn the clients, and also time and space, the mental space to focus on the critical things that I need to complete.
All right, mine is going to be a little lighter. And not that that's really important, +1, but what I need from you all is to consider having a coffee chat with me. It makes me so happy to have one-on-one chats with people who are from across the company, who want to talk to me about literally anything. It doesn't even have to be about the work we're doing. It can be about this. It can be about a meme that you like. Thank you, Shell. So yes, please, my calendar is 100% up to date. So what I need for you to do is put some coffee chats on my calendar.
Sandy, what I need from you is?
Well, first, I do have a coffee chat scheduled with Stephanie, and I'm very excited. So that has been checked off. I think another thing that I need from everyone is an open-mindedness and an understanding of where someone is coming from, or what their personality type is, or what they may be dealing with, in that instance. I think so often in the workplace, you can get, again, kind of pigeonholed or branded. So it's like, see me for how, I kind of want or try to be seen. Don't try to put any kind of label. I'm not quiet, but I'm also not combative. I think women can so often be stuck at an extreme, and that's kind of, branded their identity. So I really encourage everyone, and what I need from everyone is to really try to see people from a fair perspective and from an understanding perspective as well.
Oh, love that, Sandy. Thank you. Amanda, what I need from you is?
Yeah, I'd say what I need from you is transparency. When Stephanie was talking before about how we don't want people to fail, like, I don't want anyone to fail, right? And I need to know what's working, what's not working, if it's a knowledge issue that we can work on, if it's an interpersonal issue we can work on. And if I have that information and I can help you and get you the support that you need, I think that everyone will be better off in their roles and, their careers, just because they're not hiding the aspects that aren't going well. Because, I think people get so fearful that if they say they don't understand something, that no one's going to go to them again, or that someone's going to mark them poorly in their peer evals. And it's not about that, right? It's about, we want people to be successful in doing so. You just have to be transparent about what's going on.
Thank you, Amanda. Do we have any questions? We can take 2 questions from the audience. Do we have any questions from the audience?
I have one question I'd like to ask anyone who can answer. How do you deal with imposter syndrome, especially when you were very successful at your last gig and then you're thrown into a different kind of world and maybe some of your skills aren't as relevant to the new job?
I'm still struggling with this, Carl. This week, I've had to have some conversations with people. And I think, just really quickly so others can answer, but for me is, I want everyone to know that everyone in leadership, they're human beings, right? And it's not that I don't deal with imposter syndrome. It's not that I don't get scared about having a big conversation. It's just that I've had so much experience doing these things that I know how to turn the volume of it down sometimes, most of the time, not always, where it's like white noise behind me. But that also doesn't mean that I don't sit on the floor of my bedroom some days and go, okay, you're smart, you're capable, you can do this. And so that's just something to remember, that like all of us are feeling that way most of the time, and nobody wants you to fail, Carl, like 100%.
Thank you. Very good.
I just want to echo what Stephanie put in the chat, saying I don't know can be super freeing. I know that I like to ask questions. I love to learn. I love to grow. So I really do empower people to raise your hand. If you don't know something, ask. Like, there's so many people here, like, who want to help you, who want to give you the tools that you need to succeed. That transparency that Amanda said is so important. Again, something that I work on, and this next tip is kind of a joke, but also if anyone wants to do it, go run a marathon or do something else really hard, because it really flips your brain and what you can achieve. So again, take that with how you will, but pushing, what I'm saying is, if you push yourself to a place of discomfort and learning and kind of new experiences, it can really change your brain. I told Amanda that she'll come with me when the apocalypse happens, and we'll make her run fast. But yeah, push yourself and try something new and step outside your comfort zone, because I think that can really help kind of counter some of that imposter syndrome, or at least as Stephanie said, turn down the volume a bit. It just gives you this sense of confidence that can really take you, in a lot of different directions.
I love that tip, Sandy. I'm gonna try that.
Just try it.
Yeah.
It can be a walk around the block too. There's many things like I found over the years that can shift your mindset and teach you, really just how capable you are.
Yeah, fantastic. Any other questions? All right, well, in closing, I think we can take away these things. One, no one wants you to fail. We want you to live. Your job is not your life. We want you to be well, set boundaries, and be intentional about connecting with others. It's a form of self-care. We want you to be treated fairly. And we want to support you so that you can thrive not only in Reingold, but in life. My name is Tiffany, and I thank each and every one of you for having me. And I am super thankful and delighted to have spoken and having this opportunity to listen and learn from our distinguished panel. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Tiffany, and everybody else.
Yeah, thank you, Tiffany. And thanks for everyone who joined us.
Thank you, guys.